our topic, our topic for tonight, because we are entering the season of Passover, if not have already entered Passover itself, because there are so many different calendars. But because this is the season we are in, this is the subject matter that we are discussing. And I wanted to also make this relevant to women and relevant to us who have families to think about Passover and how to bring things out to our children, our grown children, how to make it relevant as a teaching tool. So this is the purposes, I guess, behind the slides in the lesson. We speak about Passover every year. Every year we rehearse the exact same event. If you came to our house on Passover last year, and you come to our house on Passover after Shabbat, we will literally be talking about the exact same things. It's not even the same words. We will be looking at the exact same scripture. We will be eating the exact same foods. Literally, it's like hitting the repeat button, And of course, we might do different things. We might go different places. We might have different people over for Passover. We might, do something different or say something different, but it's a rehearsal every single year. It doesn't change and it doesn't get old. And, we have women on here who's been doing this their whole life. We keep and we cling to the message of Passover. We don't veer from it, to the right or to the left. And we do this with intent, and we do this with intention because we have Passover themes, and one of it is that, we are commanded to remember. Exodus 12, verse 14 says, "And this day shall be unto you for a memorial." So remembering, right? A memorial, and you shall keep it a feast unto Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by ordinance forever. So we're doing it with intent. We're remembering with intent. We was commanded to teach our children. It says in Exodus 12, verse 26 through 27, "And it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, What mean ye by this service?" They might ask, "How different is this night from all other nights?" That ye shall say, "It is the sacrifice of Yahweh's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses, and the people bowed their head and worshiped." That's the end of the verses. But the point is that it is to teach and to perpetuate the story, keep it going so it doesn't get forgotten, it doesn't get lost. We also get rid of leaven. We fast leaven. I don't know if people think about it as fasting, but we're literally fasting. And we also eat matzah. So the first two elements was remembering in our head and then vocalizing with our mouth. Now, this is where we get to actually doing something like physical, changing things, moving things around. Exodus 12, verse 15 says, 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. So that's commanded that we eat it. Not just that we cease from eating chametz or leaven, but that we begin eating matzah. Even the first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses, for whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. So we're doing something as well. Passover is about remembering. It's about changing. It's about ceasing. The verse that says to put away leaven, that means to take a Shabbat from leaven. That means, actually, that's the way it's worded in the Hebrew. We're taking a break from it. We take a break from leaven. So it's about changing. It's about ceasing. It's about fasting. And ultimately, we're doing all of these things to bring about transformation. Okay, we are looking towards the transformation power of the Most High. And so the title of this presentation and our discussion is Passover, Just the Beginning. You know, we're looking at how this transformation of Passover is really just the beginning of a whole lot else, okay? But for right now, we're just going to stick with talking about Passover, and hopefully we can really talk about how it relates to us as Hebrew women. So I don't know if anyone has anything to say about any of those things yet, but that was kind of the introduction. I want to start out with talking about how the elements of Passover is just the beginning. If we look at the matzah, the unleavened bread, it's just the beginning. The bread that's shown here is leavened bread. This is a recreation of an oven that would have been used in ancient Israel, and some of the way that their bread would look, okay? But the bread of the Levant, the bread of ancient Israel, was like a flat bread in general. It was like a pita or like a naan, if you know Indian food. And it was leavened with natural yeast. It was leavened with the ambient, natural wild yeast of the air. Interestingly enough, sometimes we would use beer to leaven our bread, because the fermentation of beer the water back then was pretty bad to drink sometimes. And so beer, because of that fermentation, it was good for your intestines, and it got rid of a lot of the harmful bacteria. But the bread that they would eat would either be leavened with the beer, or it would be leavened with a yeast starter, just similar to what we know as sourdough starter. And so the beginning of any type of bread, whether it's chametz or whether it's matzah, is matzah. You begin with matzah. You begin with just flour and water. You're not starting with anything else but those two ingredients. And so you could allow that to sit. If you could let that sit for a very long time, but if you allow it to sit for 5 to 7 days, it starts to get bubbly, and it starts to even rise. And then you could take from that, you take a portion from that, and you could add some more flour and some more water, and you could let it sit, and you could let it rise for if you let it go 5 to 7 days, you might have to let it rise almost a whole day. But you could let that rise, and you can then use that to make bread. And so this was how it was done. But you could see here, this is a process of several days, and you could see how you just started with a little bit of flour and water, and you could see how it rises over time because of the natural yeast that are in the air. So where does the leaven we remove come from? Where is this? Where is it located? Do we go to the store to buy it? I don't know if anyone wants to answer that. But the leaven, okay, good. Go ahead. Thank you.
I can answer, but I wanted to add something to what you're saying. Something I didn't think about before is how they used yeast, using a starter, and how even after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, they still went without leavened bread because they still had to wait to create a starter to start making up leaven again. That was just something I didn't realize until just now. But yeah, the leaven comes from the air. You taught me this years ago.
Yep. Yeah, that's actually great. So if you're fasting from leaven for 7 days, you need to tack on an extra 5 days to that, because they didn't just go back to the store and buy another packet of yeast. They had to make it. They had to wait and make it again. But yeah, the leaven or the yeast is in the air. It's in the air. You don't have to go too far to become leavened. You actually don't have to go anywhere. All you have to do is breathe. All you have to do is exist. And if you are just existing, you're gonna become leavened, okay? And I mean, that's on a spiritual level, that's on a physical level, that's on every level. It's all around us, okay? But it always begins, it starts out, its beginning point is unleavened. Its beginning point is matzah. It's matzah that becomes something else. It becomes its own thing. I mean, it grows and then it helps other matzah grow. You know what I mean? You put some water and flour and you put a little bit of that starter in, it's helping it to grow, okay? It becomes its own, I don't want to say its own beast, but it becomes its own thing, okay? 1 Corinthians 5, verses 6 through 8 says, your glorifying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Messiah, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So the question is, what is leaven in this context of Passover? Because we also have a good context of leaven. But what is it? Go ahead, Carletta.
Sin. It's sin.
Yes.
I was going to answer your previous question, and you said your question was, where does leaven come from? Or I was going to answer, I guess, from the heart, but I forgot you did mention previously it does come from the air. But I was thinking, I guess, more on a spiritual, or where does it come from us? I guess it's something that we have a thought process that we interact, or maybe we have sin in our heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's the natural process. It's the natural process. Because you said that leaven is sin. And we can look over here at this verse where it says, keep the feast, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness. Wickedness is sin, right? Malice, anger, or intent, which intention lies in the heart. So what is your intentions? What are your actions? But it all originates from one source, which is our ego, which causes us to get puffed up inside, causes us to boast, it causes us to think more highly of ourselves than we ought. It might even make us think that we're so righteous or so holy or whatever, but it's that ego. You put a little ego in someone, and sometimes, they can become very ambitious. They can really do great things just based off of their ego, or based off of fear of failure, or based off of fear of losing face on something. But when we get boasted up in our own minds, in our own hearts, that's all leaven. So at Passover time, we remove or we do some examination. And as we're removing the leaven from our homes, the greater thing that we should be doing is searching, examining ourselves based off of the spirit of holiness, the Ruach HaKodesh, to remove and to deflate the ego, or if we have physical sin, even that, definitely that within our own lives, okay? We check ourselves, we get that pin out and we poke a hole in our little balloon, right? So that we can decrease, so that he can raise us back up again, okay? But not based off of our own ego, but based off of his Ruach, based off of his spirit of holiness. Does anyone want to add anything to that? Okay, all right. Well, let's go. Let's keep going here. And I just think that for me, at least, it was not at the beginning of me celebrating Passover that I realized that I was fasting, because it's a feast. And so I'm thinking about food. And it wasn't until later that I realized that I was fasting. Anytime that you're fasting, there is your ego is decreasing. You're decreasing yourself. You're afflicting yourself so that Yah can fill your cup. And we'll get Ebony to talk about that a little bit, because she had a wonderful picture for that. But spiritually, what does Passover represent? Okay, what does it represent? Paul, he says that Yeshua, our Passover, was sacrificed. And so the question becomes, what did Messiah's sacrifice do for us? And what does Passover really represent? Okay, because it's really great getting out the food or all the leaven and out of your cabinets and cleaning and doing all these wonderful things that we do. But if we don't actually do this thing in a spiritual sense, we kind of are just, we're not really doing too much. we're just cleaning better. We're just getting things out of our house. Okay, why isn't it going? Okay, there it goes. But Passover represents redemption. And this is the thing that we're going to kind of segue into, talking about the redemption of Passover. Let's go to the next slide. There's 4 aspects of redemption. We talk about this every single Passover, literally. We talk about every Passover. It is kind of ingrained. But I'll just read the scriptures because it's in Exodus 6, verses 6 through 8. It says, "Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgment. And I will take you to myself for a people, and I will be to you an Elohim, and ye shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, which bringeth you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will bring you into the land concerning that which I swear to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and I will give it to you for a heritage. I am Yahweh." So let's just go through the 4 aspects. The first aspect being that Yah says he will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. So what is this aspect? because this is the first aspect, and this aspect is physical deliverance. The Hebrew word is yatsah, which means to literally draw you out. You know, you're in the ocean, you're drowning, and it's like this arm reaches down from the sky and picks you up out the water. Or you're in a pit and there's the walls on all sides are smooth, you can't get out. And he reaches down and he pulls you out. Just like how Moshe, he was literally taken out or drawn out of the water. And so physical deliverance is the children of Israel in Egypt. They aren't able to save themselves. If they was, we wouldn't be talking about Passover right now. We'd be talking about something else. But they was in a state, in a position where they needed supernatural deliverance. The second one is, I shall deliver you from their enslaving. We go to mental deliverance here, or not saw, which means to snatch away. And this deliverance in the scriptures, when you see this type of deliverance being talked about, it's often the power of one entity overcoming the power of another. So like to be delivered from the hand of something else. You're in this hand and you're going to be delivered and taken out of that hand. That's the type of understanding that this has. But when we are taken out of the hand of one thing that we know, and we're brought into the hand of another, we have an understanding of, oh, we was in this hand at that point, and now we're in this hand now, you know. And so there's a transference in our mental state and our understanding, our comprehension, that we are being removed from one hand, you know, to another. The third aspect is, I shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgment. And this is redemption. This is the hugest component of Passover. It's the concept, the Ga'al concept of the kinsman redeemer, to be paid for or to be bought back in full. And so we know that Yeshua, he is the manifestation of the power of Yah. He is the arm, or the Zeroah Yahweh. He is the arm of the Most High. And so when we're talking about the arm that comes in and pulls us out, that is definitely 100% the Messiah. The fourth aspect is, I shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim. So this spiritual taking, the Hebrew word lakach, it often means to take as a husband would take a bride or take a wife. In fact, in Genesis 25, verse 1, this is how this Hebrew word is used. And so the ultimate result of redemption is, the ultimate result of Passover is a status change of being the slave of the Pharaoh to being the bride of the Most High, the bride of Yah. There's a status change. That means that there is a transformation. There's a process of transformation. Your status is changed because you are redeemed. So when we talk about this word justification, justification is the legal term for those who are redeemed, or actually the process, it's the result of the process of redemption. So if you are redeemed, it means that you have been divinely pardoned, and that you have been declared henceforth and treated as righteous, okay? So the process of redemption brings about justification. And we're going to go ahead to Romans 3, verses 23 through 26, which says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of Yah, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Yeshua HaMashiach, whom Elohim has set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past, through the forbearance of Elohim. To declare, I say, at this time, his righteousness, that he might be just and a justifier of him which believeth in Yeshua HaMashiach. And so this here encapsulates basically what I had said, that the work of justification happens through redemption. And so there's a clear status change that happens when we look at the children of Israel are coming out of Egypt. They come out of Egypt not to be their own people, but to come to the mountain, right? To come to Mount Sinai, to receive the covenant, to receive this new relationship. You know, you're no longer the slave of Pharaoh, but we are we are the Most High. You know what I mean? He is our Elohim. We are his servants now. And so that happened at the first Passover. That happens every single time anyone makes a decision to serve the Most High. And that also happens whenever people are delivered from whatever things they are going through in their own, whatever the situations are that they're going through in their own life. But to be rescued, delivered, redeemed, justified, all these wonderful things, we have to submit to the process of redemption. Because if you think about it, when we come to the end of ourselves, when a person thinks that they're able to help themselves, they are going to keep trying to help themselves. Or maybe they'll just give up. But, you know, for the most part, they're going to, if they feel like they can't breathe, they're going to strive to get some oxygen, right? If there's a person who's drowning in the ocean, they're going to strive to, figure out how to get out of that situation by flailing their arms and their legs. And so if you have someone who's trying to rescue them, they might just let them flail just a little bit to kind of wear themselves out so that they can help them get out their situation. They got to come to the end of their own self before they're able to accept the process of deliverance. And so a lot of times people who are stuck in a cycle of sin or a cycle of, they're in something that they want deliverance from, a lot of times it's because they haven't really come to the end of themselves. They think that if they just, get this self-help book, or they just do this or that, they're going to be able to figure it out. But a lot of times those same people actually just need to submit to the process of redemption. So the children of Israel in Egypt, they wasn't able to save themselves out of their situation. And so, but their process of redemption was to put the blood of the lamb on their doorposts. If they didn't do that, they would not receive, they wouldn't receive the redemption. Their firstborn would have died just like everybody else's who didn't do it. So there has to come a point in time where we come to an end of ourselves and realizing that we are in need of redemption. And everyone here, I'm sure, has come to that point in their life on a global level, but there are certain things that people who even come very far still need to get deliverance from in different areas. And so at Passover time, you should ask, what areas are you still in bondage? Where are you still in bondage? Where do you still need to come to the end of yourself because you are trying too hard to save yourself from a situation, or to save someone else, or just putting your hand in too many pots? There are different things, that each of us can work on. And so I think that just submitting ourselves to the process and listening to the Ruach and allowing the Ruach to show us these areas, will help us get through. And this is the key here, because now we're kind of coming to the end of the slides, but it's always about transformation. Transformation is a sign of life. If anything stays the exact same, it's not alive. It's not living, right? And so we look at transformation all the time. With the matzah, you start out with fresh water and flour, and you make something new. You make matzah. If you let the matzah sit and you add some more flour and water to it, you get something new. You get lechem, you get chametz. If you or start out in need of deliverance, and we go through that process, that change, we become something new. We become redeemed. We can look back and we can say, oh, that was a problem for me last year, but it's no longer a problem for me anymore. And then someone say, oh, well, did you read a book to get through it? Oh, no, the Most High delivered me from that thing. It's supernatural. It happened. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I don't have to I don't have to get I don't have to have any refresher courses in this. You know what I mean? Because I've been redeemed, I've been delivered. But looking at it on a global level, becoming something new. We become something transformed. If we are redeemed at Passover, if we are justified, now it's time to enter into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we talked about justification, but sanctification is the process of once you have been given that white garment, once you have been cleansed, once you have been de-leavened, keeping that going. So we enter the door of Passover. The door of Passover, is so that we can go on to the feast, the greater feast, which, once we've come through that redemption, once we've come through that justification, once we have been changed, now we're able to walk this thing out by, again, the Ruach HaKodesh. All right, so I literally grabbed these slides from, grabbed these next 3 slides from the Adoring the Bride conference because it really talks about the whole transformation process. So we look at Isaiah 61 verses 1-3. It says, the Spirit of Adonai Yahweh is upon me, because Yahweh hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of Yahweh, that he might be glorified. So what does our feast look like? You know what I mean? When we're talking about, we go through the door of Passover into the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we go through that redemption process. We are, through that redemption process, justified so that we can live this sanctified life during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is to represent our whole life, really, right? But what does this sanctification walk and this life look like? And this is what it looks like. We are being taken from something by our bridegroom, by our Redeemer, and he gives us beauty for ashes. He gives us oil of joy for mourning, whereas we were sad before, now we're happy. Remember Miriam dancing with the women with the timbrels. There's a garment of praise for a spirit of heaviness. You're no longer under the burdens of the oppressor and of the enemy and of your own flesh. And he gives us beauty for ashes. And one of the things about beauty for ashes is that shows a transformation. In the Hebrew, you could see a transformation because the word for beauty and the word for ashes have the same 3 Hebrew letters in them, just in a different order. So I'm going to just show that to you. That ashes is Ephor, which is an aleph, a pei, and a resh. So it's an aleph, a pei, and a resh. You can remember those 3 letters, aleph, pei, resh. Beauty is pei, aleph, resh. So it's aleph, pei, resh, and now it's pei, aleph, resh. Pe'er is beauty. So he literally does a transformation. He changes out the Ephor, and he changes those things around, and he changes it to the Pe'er. Okay, so we might even look the same, but spiritually we've been given a transplant. Things have been moved around. Okay, so we've been taken from a place of mourning to a place of joy. And so at Passover, we start out, we have this like time of a reset, but it's a reset that's on every level. If you think about it, I might decide to go on a cleanse, or my family might decide to go on a cleanse or a fast, or my community might decide to go on a cleanse or a fast or something, or we might have a deliverance ministry or a deliverance conference or something like that, or we might do some sort of a global prayer across multiple communities. We might even have a conference or something. But at Passover time, this is a time of a national fast. So as a nation, we fast, as a community, as a family, and on an individual level. It's something that pretty much everyone can do. Sometimes when we go to the Day of Atonement, we might have someone who is, sickly, diabetic or something like that. But on Passover, all of us can just not have any bread, or not have any leaven. And so at Passover, we're all able to deflate and we're all able to begin together as a new lump. We're able to do this together. We're able to do this b'yachad. Okay, we're able to do it all at once and all together. But it's just the beginning, because we're doing it with a vision forward. This is Passover. We're getting through this door. We're going through sanctification, and we are doing it because we have a work to do. All of us as individuals have a work to do. All of us as families have a work to do. All of us as a community, whatever your congregation or community is, has a work to do. And as a nation, we definitely have a work to do, because we represent the Most High. We are his ambassadors. So that is the presentation, the slides that I have. And I want to make sure I can open it up, because I want to hear what anyone has to say about this. So please share.
Hi, Moshe. Just wanted to say hi. Oh, he can't hear me. He has his head. You have your headset in.
Yeah, I have my headphones in.
That was really good. I appreciate what you put together. I wanted to jump back to the beginning in regards to you talking about the remembering portion and how we do the same thing every year. There's no surprise. This is what it is. And I recently had done a fast with my family. And when you brought up the remembering portion, it made me think about why we decided to do a fast in the first place. And it's just so easy to forget. I think that's where I'm going with this whole remembering thing. It's just so easy to forget, and you fill yourself up with so many things over the year, so many distractions and so many things that's deserving to be purged out, that the remembering portion is just, it's just, you can kind of read over it and be like, remember, but it's just that simple task of reiterating the same thing to make sure you get it. Like, you have to remember, like, and the repetition of it could be seen by someone on the outside as, I don't know, grievous or just painfully repetitive. But we were commanded to remember in this way so that our children just naturally just have this light in them that they never forget. They can't forget. So I just appreciated that whole remembering part. Hopefully what I'm saying is making sense. Because it's just really a small command that merits like a big response. And it's just important that we continue to remember in that way and continue to purge out all those distractions during this time of a fast. And I like that you mentioned that it is a fast, because it is a fast from leaven. And when we first met, I didn't even like to make unleavened cakes and stuff, because I'm like, that's taking the fun out of it of like this fast of these sweets and things like that, just to really make it this separate ordeal. But yeah, that's what I wanted to add. Thanks.
Oh yeah, yes. Because distractions just, oh my goodness, we get so distracted. We get distracted all the time. All right, Nishama, you're up next. Go ahead.
Well, shalom. How are you, Tirza?
I'm doing well. I'm glad you're on. Nice to see
me
you
too.
On.
I'm so glad that I saw the notification in my email to remind me. I appreciate this, and I'm so thankful to Yah for you and the ladies that have been in this for a long time, because the rest, it gives hope to the rest of us. I appreciate you bringing out Isaiah 61 about how Passover transitioned us from just being people who were mourning. He came to Egypt to see about us because of our cry and because of our pain. But then he was changing even then. I know that that was prophetic in Isaiah 61, but even then, Yah is changing how we move or how we interact with life, from just being oppressed or feeling all the residual of the oppression, and how he moves us. And I value you all so much, and the ladies that I see that have been in this walk for a long time, because I can see, Joy, that you're not weighed down like a lot of other people some who are very good at talking, but are definitely weighed down. They are weighed down, and they haven't yet grown to that place of peace and joy and serving Yah or keeping his feast. Like, there's still merit in being obedient, absolutely. But then the hashtag to that obedience is, and he asked, and you shall come before me with joy. And so when you have been to shake the shackles of the oppressed mind, only Yah can do that. Only his spirit, only his Ruach can do that for us. And I heard a lesson not too long ago, and it really changed my mindset about even fasting. The man, he said that a lot of times we have spiritual, how did he call it, starvation segments. Our fasting has become starvation as opposed to a true fast. And I'm like, okay, what you mean by that? We will abstain from one thing, but we don't put in us the thing that we're supposed to. When Yah tells us to get rid of this one thing, when he's snatching us from these other things, whether it's oppression of sin or whatever kind of oppression that we're dealing with, when he snatches us, is to put us in a different position. And that's what I heard in what you were talking about, how he says, draw near to me and I'll draw near to you. Those things, when we fast, sometimes we'll deplete ourselves of something, but we don't feed the spirit man. Or we give the spirit man, we'll bird feed him while we're starving our flesh. And so while it may do something, the big ripple is when we abstain physically from certain things, that we have a feast spiritually on the things of Yah, on the things that are good, the things that are noble, right, of a good report. Those things are what give us that, help us to transition from just being oppressed people. And if you think about it, when you say Passover is just the beginning, like, man, that's so loaded to me, because you had those who were, after they went through Passover, after they crossed the Red Sea, were still oppressed in their minds by sin. And so they took some things with them that they could have left. And so the fact that some people were not able to enter into his rest, or were not able to accept all the love that Yah was showing them, like literally, physically right there, showing them all his great works. Some people could not let go, or chose not to let go of an old mindset. And so that purging the old man, and even, it's like a lot of verses and scriptures came to mind when you were talking. There are other verses that talk about snatching people out of fire. That's one that came to mind. When they are caught up in sin, there's some people you got to go grab them, and that's what Yah does for us, and that's what he expects us to do for others. But I won't keep rambling on. I'm trying to soak it all in, and I do appreciate the reference to Isaiah 61, because my heart this year is to just get closer and closer to Yah, like to really, really, really evaluate what I'm doing, and is it making me get closer to him, or taking me further away from him. And Passover, the whole purpose of Passover, before he's like, when he said Moshe to go tell Pharaoh, let them go so they can come and worship me. In other words, let them go so they can come and get close to me. There was the separation of all, it was so many things between him and his people while we were in Egypt. And so I won't ramble on. I just want to tell you, I appreciate that. And just to toss that in about, we don't just starve ourselves, be filled with something else. He takes away one diet and gives us a different diet. And the diet he gives us is what transitions us from that mourning to joy, from that feeling down to being happy. All the things that were in Isaiah 61, that's what changes things. But if we only just get rid of one thing, I did that my first year keeping Passover, unleavened bread, because I didn't know. I promise you, I was just trying to figure it out. First year, we just didn't eat any leaven. And then, of course, we were finding leaven everywhere still, but we didn't make a point to eat unleavened bread every day. And so I appreciate you bringing out the aspect of fasting.
No, I enjoyed every single thing you said, and it was not rambling whatsoever at all. I was just going back to the verse, just so that anyone who didn't know what verse that was, that you was referring to about, like, the verse in Exodus 12:15 says, 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall Shabbat put away leaven out of your houses. So you get rid of it. You don't eat it. You don't eat the leaven, but you replace it with matzah. So it's not like you just get rid of one thing and you just don't eat bread. Some people be like, I don't even eat bread. I hear that all the time now, especially people who have these low carb diets. I don't even eat bread. It's not even a big deal to me. And I say, well, do you eat matzah? What do you mean? I have to eat matzah. How many times a day I got to eat it? I'm like, well, you should at least eat it once a day. I don't like making rules for people, but it says 7 days shall you eat matzah. So maybe just eat a piece every day, When we fast, we remove one thing, but we have to fill ourselves with the Most High. We have to fill ourselves with Him. It's really just not eating carbs. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what He wants, obviously. But, about the joy thing and celebrating these holy days, I think that if you look at this 4 aspects of redemption. A lot of people are being freed, and they're at different levels in that redemptive process. But they might even be at a point of just being very religious about, oh, I'm going to get all the leaven out of my house, I'm going to clean my house down and all of this. But they haven't really experienced that spiritual level of redemption. They really haven't gotten to that point of seeing the Most High face to face, eye to eye, and really seeing it from a spiritual perspective as opposed to just trying to get leaven out your house and trying, not eating bread. Or just trying not to do too many, like there's so many thoughts, and it's like, you don't have to have all those thoughts. It's just, it's too much. All right, Carletta, you want to go up? Your hand is raised.
It was, huh? I'm sorry. There was a lot of good things that were said, and I believe it was already said. Just, I guess, not only is this a feast for us, I've never thought of it on the aspect of being a national feast or a national fast. I'm so excited that it's a feast time, that we get to celebrate and we're gathering together and we're celebrating. But yeah, that is a different aspect, or perspective to think about. It is something, or a time that we are fasting. And another point that you mentioned was the resetting. I really, really like that. I think when you said that, my heart like brightened up like 10 times more, because I'm looking forward to hitting this reset button. I'm literally telling myself, like, even from last month, sis, I just got to make it to Pesach. I just got to make it to Passover. I'm really looking forward to it. I even have people at work already asking me, they know that I'm taking time off, and they know how excited I am. So everyone in the office is like, when are you leaving? When's your last day? And I'm like, they're like, what are you going to be doing? So I have everyone even around me excited for this, and my kids, they're excited too. But in that time, I'm excited. But now we're like, okay, once we get there, what are we going to do? And I'm like, you know what? It's just time with the Father. That's genuinely what I'm looking forward to. I get to unplug, I get to unwind, and more importantly, I get to reset that button, So like I was saying, it was a lot of good points were already mentioned, and I forgot I had my hand up, but that's what I was actually thinking to say.
Yes, hallelujah, hallelujah. All right, go ahead, Shula.
Shalom. So yeah, this everybody has said some very thoughtful things and things that really just sparked a thought for me in several ways. I have so many notes, starting with remember, and Ebony brought that point out regarding the remembering to unleaven yourself, and then the Shama began to speak about, being grateful for the sisters, that have the experience. And that made me think that, the process of unleavened, it's a process. And like the title states, Pesach is the beginning of, of that process, where, it's there as a reminder to find, where are you still in bondage? What do you need deliverance from? And then Carletta mentioned, having this anticipation. And for me personally, I do go through the process of, trying my best to cleanse my house. It's almost like I begin to feel like I'm going to be delivered, or I have something that I almost like you're going to give birth. It's almost like nesting before you have your children come home, and you think of all the things that you need to do to prepare yourself to start this new part of your life. And, in this case, it begins with the obedience by putting the blood of the lamb on your doorpost, and then getting the leavening out, to remember that, like Tirsa said, Israel is being redeemed not to become a people, but to become Yah's people. And I think that's an important thing to keep at the forefront. It wasn't, to become our own. It was to become Yah's set apart, special, peculiar thing unto himself. And so that is ultimately what the preparation is for, is to become, be redeemed back to the Father. So, Toda.
Hallelujah. Natalie's hand was up next, so you go ahead, Natalie.
Hopefully you can hear me, because I'm driving. I was at home before, but I had to go pick up one of my kids. I just wanted to bring up something. It was in your Shabbat Midrash a couple years ago before Passover, and it was, I think, Galatians 5, and it's where he lists all the different sins that you could be committing, and that when in the Midrash it was about searching your heart for those different things. You know which one I mean?
Yes, I'm pulling it up right now though, but yes.
So I was talking to my oldest son about Passover, and I sent him that passage, and then I sent him a couple other things and said, this is what you should be thinking about now. And so I just wanted to share that, because I thought that was a really good little summary of things you should be looking out for in your heart. And then also, just I saw one of your comments about not knowing where the leaven came from. And I just wanted to point out, just like the miracle that is yeast, it's not just bread that you can grow a sourdough culture for. I mean, you can grow, you can just salt carrots and stick water in a jar, and within a few days they'll be fermented, and it grows all kinds of amazing good things for your gut, bacteria, and just like if you think about that, how incredible and simple that is, and like what a miracle of creation that is, that you can preserve your food with a little bit of salt and water and a little bit of know-how. And you can preserve beets, celery, broccoli. Like, you can preserve all kinds of different vegetables that way and make all kinds of different fermented foods that are amazing for your health. And when I first started learning how to ferment, I thought, what a miracle is this, that you didn't need a refrigerator, you didn't need glass jars, you didn't need a canner, none of this stuff. You could preserve your own food just with these like extremely rudimentary things. Like you could have a clay pot and salt and water, and you'd be able to preserve yourself vegetables that would provide your body with vitamin C during the winter.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take very much. It really doesn't. I wanted to just make sure I said what the list was from Galatians Chapter 5, verses 19 to 21. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity and debauchery, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit. I don't know what version is this. You will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. This is New International Version. I might get in trouble by some people, but I didn't realize that until I got to the end. But But yeah, I mean, in the world, the ambient air is telling us that if we denounce these things, then we are, what are we? I don't know. What's the word? We think, I guess we're trying to think, what's the word you guys? Bigots is the word I'm looking for. We're bigots. You know, we are causing someone else harm because they, you know, they should be able to live like this or do whatever they want to do. The world is teaching, do as thou wilt, you know, for this is the will of man. You can do whatever you want to do. It's fine. Nobody's going to judge you. But Passover is bringing out judgment, you know, and where does it start? It starts in the household of faith. It starts in our houses. You know, you're making judgment calls. Is this leaven? Is this unleavened? Like, is this, you know, if I let my flour sit in my water for a whole day and then I decide to make matzah with it, it might have some yeast in it now. But go ahead, Natalie. I didn't want to cut you off.
That's pretty much all I had to say. I just every time I see I ferment all kinds of different things, and every time I see those little bubbles first come out, I think, you know, like it's really amazing. I mean, the creation speaks for itself, you know. That this thing that looks like it comes from nothing, but it's there, you know. These little useful bacteria that you know, probably were what kept people alive for a long time, you know, their ability to preserve things just from lactofermentation of this, you know, extremely simple ingredients.
Yeah, and I mean, from my research, they drank beer a lot because it was safer to drink at that time than water with the fermentation. All right, Ebony, you're up next. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just real quick. Thank you for letting me go again. So I just had 2 points to make really quick. Back to them having their starter. I'm still on this. Them having that sourdough starter and then only having to purge that from their house. I feel like they had it really easy. I'm on this. So I'm like, hold on. She's bringing out some good information about way back in the day. And they only had to get rid of that jar. I feel away. They might have to clean their house in their oven. But man, I got leaven all up in this house. Okay. And then secondly,
the ovens was outside too. So I'm not even sure how much cleaning they did of that.
Exactly. But then I also wanted to bring out to Janeri's point of finding leaven in previous Passovers, because I think most of us may have experienced that on one level or another. And yeah, it is unfortunate, like when you're trying your best to purge out all of that leaven. But I just wanted to challenge anyone's thought process on that, and especially anyone new, that if you do find some leaven after you thought you purged it out, to look at it in a spiritual sense, right? So even though you might find some leaven in the back of your fridge, you thought you cleaned it all out, or in a deep part of your cupboard, to look at those moments and try to be joyous about it, and to say Todah Yah for being able to find it. Because, you know, that's, even though we are doing it in a physical sense, there is still that spiritual sense of like, you know what, there's still stuff in me that I still need to work on. And I'm just so grateful that Yah was able to show me that there's still work, even though I'm striving for this level of perfection. Just, you know, a moment to just be joyous and just be thankful for having to be shown grace and love like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not getting thrown down because you missed the little packet of yeast that was behind something and under two things and around the corner. Oh my goodness. Every year I find leaven after I've thoroughly search, and my husband goes through the house and thoroughly searches after me. So it's something that happens, you know. All right, we have Titus 2 life coach, Sister Malcolm Marie. You are up. Go ahead.
Hey, shalom, ladies. I wasn't here for most of the lesson, but just from the comments, what came to my spirit was the primary message of salvation, right? Because the Abba gave us this feast in the beginning of the year. This is the time of sowing seeds, preparing the garden for what we're going to harvest. And he's like, before you even do that, purge out and find what needs to be taken away so we can have life. You know, he wants us to be redeemed. He wants us to live. He wants us to choose life. And that's his first message. You know, he didn't give us any of the feast day to do first that pointed to anything else outside of being covered by the blood of the Lamb, you know. So I just appreciate how the Father, you know, he highlights salvation in so many different ways. You know, the scripture says that a fool need not even err. How simple and how everywhere the Messiah is. And I think, you know, we all battle with the same thing every year, finding yeast. I'll share one quick story. I never, ever, ever eat McDonald's biscuit, chicken, breakfast, whatever it is they sell. And one day I'm just like, I'm hungry. And I said, I'll just go get a biscuit. I'm sitting there in McDonald's. I'm like, something don't feel right. You know, but when the Father showed me what I was doing, I knew it was him because it was something I don't do, something that I didn't realize I was doing. So that told me that there's something that I'm doing that I'm not aware of that is sin. So when we find these things after we search and someone else search, that just tells us there's more searching to be done. Right? There's always going to be something to be found. That's why we do it every year. And I'm gonna let you guys know what I find after the fact, because I know I'm gonna find something. I was just telling my daughter, yeah, you call me when you find that pack of yeast, because you're gonna find something. But Toda, Sister Trissa, and the Echad for doing this. Thank you, ladies, for being here and sharing your comments. It's just giving me a lot of things to continue to think about and reflect about as we prepare our minds and our hearts to take the memorial of our Mashiach. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I mean, Passover, you know, it's the beginning of the feast. You know, it's at the beginning of the year, the beginning of the harvest, the barley harvest. But you know, we have greater harvests ahead. We got the wheat harvest. You know, we have the new wine harvest. We have the ingathering at the end of the year. In the 7th month. You know, it's a beginning point, but if we start out wrong, the whole thing is going to be wrong. There's going to be, at the very least, it's going to be hard to get back on track, right? So, you know, it's my prayer that as we enter these holy days, all of us are in a mindful state that, you know, we are going to go through this Passover and enter into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We're going to go through the door, go through that blood-covered door, so that we can, you know, just become refreshed, become renewed, get a new focus, you know, get a new vision for the year, you know, find and discover what the Most High has for us to do on every level, you know, just as an individual. What does he have for your family to do? What does he have for your children? You know, what does he have for your community? You know, what does he have for our nation to do? So, you know, we have a lot of things. We have a lot of things to look forward to. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.